Retail parks. I heard today some interesting discussions about a lot of things which should happen in Serbia. I think retail parks are one of these things which will really happen because the finance volume is lower. But I'm very happy to have a very interesting panel here, combined with a bank or financial institution, with an investor, yeah, and also a developer investor on the other side. And I think this is an interesting combination to find out where this is going. Yeah? Mr. Willardson is the new CEO of MPC Group. Yeah? They are owners of Ušće Shopping Center. I think very, very successful project, because also of the fact because there are not so much shopping centers in Belgrade, that we are honest. Yeah? I think if the same situation would be in Zagreb, it wouldn't be also not so easy. But let it be. I called him in an email shopping center guru, yeah? And he developed also a lot of retail parks. He's fresh in Serbia, 2 months here, and I think one of the first questions will be shopping center versus retail park. Mr. Brody is investor, is doing a project in Šabac, and we would like to hear from him what he's planning and what, where are maybe some problems or where this leads. And maybe Klaus is the most important, Klaus Graber is the most important person here, because today the comment was where the banks, yeah? They are successful hiding, yeah? But at the end of the day, Klaus will tell us what they are financing now, a bigger project and a smaller project, and especially the success of Mladenovac, retail park, is convincing me that we are talking about the good stuff. Yeah? No, Mladenovac is a smaller one. You don't do Mladenovac. Okay. But it's our project. It's your project, yeah. Pančevo is a retail mall. That's something special, yeah. I think it's that's something in between. But let's start. Where is the differentiation in your point of view, Mr. Willardson? Shopping center, retail park, retail mall, yeah. Where is it?
Well, maybe just a first small introduction, if you allow me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now as you said, I'm very fresh in Belgrade, but I'm happy to be here. I've just been here for 2 months. My educational background, I'm civil engineer in constructions, which I think is useful to have as a startup background for a developer. And also as an investor, but mainly I have done the last 20 years, I've done retail parks, shopping centers, a little bit of office, a little bit of residential, and the one and only outlet center, which is based in Czech Republic, it's in Prague. We have done that as primarily developers. I worked 12 years for the biggest CEE retail developer called TK Development. It's a Danish company. Before that, I spent 4 years in Germany, 2 years in Stockholm, so I have been a little bit around. So ending up in Serbia, that's a true challenge. It's a challenge if you look into the market. It can be positive, negative. I tend to take the positive attitude, and I see a lot of big opportunities in front of us, MPC, not just looking at the older portfolio, but surely also looking into new business. I'm happy to be with the banks, as you said, Sander, we haven't seen them for some time, but I'm glad they are present. It's also great to be next to somebody who is already starting up the business here. I'm sure we can learn from that. So that was just a small intro. Back on your point regarding retail parks and shopping centers. Well, retail parks is seen as not being too sophisticated projects. The main typical retail park is a one-level scheme, easy accessible for customers. It's normally placed on the outskirts of cities due to the purchase power, which everything comes down to the purchase power. The tenant cannot pay that high rent. When the purchase power is not there, that is why you have to create more simple buildings, constructions, like a retail park is. Not said that you cannot do mistakes by doing retail parks. Surely you can. I have seen something in Serbia already constructed, which I haven't seen before. It's not said that it's a mistake. It's maybe just another way of doing things. But I have carried out about 280,000 square meters of retail parks over the past 10 years. So a few new things I have learned. We have learned from doing things right and wrong. I hope also you will be successful with your scheme. I haven't seen it yet in detail, but hopefully it will be standing soon. Regarding the typical tenants, back to that, maybe touch that for retail parks. Retail parks, they were established, as I said, due to an easy access for customers, so you can park just outside the door. It is convenient shopping. It's mainly shopping focused on bigger goods, brown goods, white goods, carpets, bikes. We have also DIYs. We have also seen that shoe retailer, fashion retailers, but the mid-lower segment of fashion retailers are entering these retail parks, whereby you see, compare that to the shopping centers, that you see a slightly higher level. You see more and smaller shops in shopping centers. In retail parks, it's mainly less and bigger. Of course, you also need anchor tenants in shopping centers like Uster. You know Uster, most likely some of you better than I do. But shopping centers mainly located in more expensive locations, more downtown. You have seen, at least in more developed countries from a retail point of view, that more and more development goes into downtown cities when you talk shopping centers, and the more sustainable shopping centers are mainly located also in the city centers, unless you have been one of the very first ones making a regional center. What more I can add to some countries are allowing food anchors in retail parks, some not. In Denmark, we have heavy restrictions on how to accommodate a food retailer in retail parks. The same is in Sweden. It's also very, very limited. Sometimes you're only allowed to put food retailers who actually sell things in tins or cans, so not fresh food. But here I can see that we have allowance from food retailers to be in, which is making the everyday shopping and also the more common or more often visits from customers available, which is a very big plus of retail parks. Maybe I should stop here and then go on to next one. Otherwise, it'd be only me speaking.
Yeah. So I'm James from Poseidon Property. Poseidon Property is a development and asset manager, and we've been in the region now for 10 years. Originally, we started in Croatia, where we have a number of tourist resorts under development, and also we own a shopping centre and some retail parks. We've been looking at Serbia now since 2008. And we originally actually took an option on a site in Belgrade in 2008. Admittedly, the timing wasn't great, and all of the retailers who would normally comprise a modern retail park didn't get board approval until 2 or 3 years later. And so now we're comfortable with Serbia because the main international retailers are active in the country. And the reason we're looking at retail is because it's incredibly undersupplied by any European standards. There's a handful of shopping centres in Belgrade and Novi Sad, and a sort of quasi shopping centre in Niš, and there's maybe 2 or 3 retail parks, and sort of according to sort of modern Western definition of what a retail park is. And the reason we're focused mainly on retail parks is because of the occupational strength of a retail park, say over a shopping centre. We're looking at concepts of around 10,000 square meters. And if you've got a 10,000 square meter retail park, you can typically lease around 80% of that to international retailers. So that's the likes of Deichmann, New Yorker, Taco, Jysk, C&A, and also, say Delhaize or maybe one of the regional hypermarket operators like Konzum or, well, not Mercator, but yeah, to be honest, actually, the hypermarket sector is probably the weakest part of the occupancy side of things. But you are still looking at around 80% lease to international retailers, and that's the same whether you're developing a retail park in Belgrade or a secondary city like we are in Shabac. Those same retailers will come to retail parks, and that provides quite a lot of security of income for us, which as developers and also for investors that we sell to at a later date is incredibly important. And in terms of us as the developer and our position in the country, we're looking to create a portfolio of retail parks. So we are developers and we like to hold for a while, but eventually we need to exit. And if we're going to exit, we need to create a portfolio of at least 4 or 5 retail parks to make that interesting to institutional investors. If we were to develop 1 or 2 retail parks, to be honest, it wouldn't be interesting to the Austrian or German or UK funds. Develop 5, and then suddenly you're up at the sort of 40 to 50 million euro mark, and that makes it interesting for them. So coming back to why retail parks are attractive for us, we can take the same retailers and put them into the secondary cities, which means that we can create a portfolio that's interesting to institutional investors, which obviously increases our liquidity. And ultimately, the biggest challenge facing any developers in Southeast Europe at the moment is selling. And I know later we're going to come on to institutional investors and who's looking for what in Serbia at the moment. There really aren't many, or if any at all, institutional investors. But looking forward, we expect them to come back to the market. And Poseidon wants to be in a position where we have 4 or 5 retail parks which we can then sell to them. And we're actually already talking to institutional investors who are looking to come into the market in the next sort of 2 to 3 years. So the occupancy allied with the geographical diversity that you can create obviously decreases the risk. And we think there are around, say, 21 markets in Serbia, 21 towns or cities in Serbia, which can support a retail park. And that's typically a town or a city with a catchment of 70,000 or more people. So, that creates an incredible opportunity for us as a developer. So that's why we're looking at retail parks. And in terms of why we're looking at retail parks more specifically over shopping centres, I'll go back again to the occupancy side. If you can create an investment with 80% leased to international retailers, these are the same retailers that you'll find in Germany, Czech Republic, or any of the other emerging markets. That creates that's incredibly attractive for us as developers. And also, retail parks, as Thomas said, are slightly simpler. They're simpler to develop. They're simpler, on the design side, the construction side. There's less tenants. The 10,000 square meter retail park, we're looking probably to have maximum 12, 13 tenants. So looking forward to the management, you spend much less time on managing your tenant profile and tenant mix, which obviously with a shopping centre where you've got 50 plus tenants, can be incredibly hard work. And for an institutional investor, that's not particularly attractive. They like fairly dry, vanilla investments where they can just hold it and own it and then sell it when there's some yield compression. And then obviously compared to, say, office or logistics, the occupational market is just completely different. There are obviously blue chip tenants who are active in Serbia, as there are in any market, but they're going to be active probably only in Belgrade. Maybe they'll have smaller offices or logistics units in secondary cities, but 80%, 90% of their occupational requirements are going to be in Belgrade, which means that, as from an investor's perspective, they're going to have to invest a lot of money in one asset. And obviously, with a retail park portfolio, you can say invest 50 million in 5 assets rather than investing, say in a shopping centre or an office, 20 to 30 million in one asset. So that spreads your risk. So if in our retail park, one of our retail parks in our portfolio is not performing well, we'll be able to compensate for that with the other retail parks in the portfolio. So that's our, that's why we're interested in retail parks at the moment. But obviously, the debt is a big problem for us as developers, which Klaus, I'm sure, will clear up now.
Only to make it a little bit very interesting explanation. Klaus, you are the main guy now. It's clear for you, yeah? First of all, we would like to hear your experience. I think Mladenovac in Pančevo are quite successful projects. Yeah? The other thing is equity, which is very interesting for us. And tell us something about bankable contracts, because I have the feeling, I have a message from a retailer and said, I would like to have 50 locations in Serbia, okay? And this is an enormous number, and as you mentioned, there are not so much cities which could be interesting. On the other hand, the tenants say, nah, we would not like to have long-running contracts. The durations could be shorter than that what the bank is needing for this. Equity, bankable contracts, a little bit around this. And I think you are feeling where the way is going in the next years.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Alexander, for inviting me to this panel. When I got your call, I was very happy to hear from you, because I knew when you were part of REBEC, we would talk more about opportunities and less about crisis. And I think this is exactly what fits also to the spirit I try to live with my team. We think, and there's a nice saying, that life is not about waiting for the storm to end, but it's about learning to dance in the rain. And I think retail parks is a perfect example how you can succeed today in Serbia. You mentioned it already, the market is widely underdeveloped. So just taking Belgrade with its stock of modern retail amounting to roughly 200,000 square meters, and comparing it to other capital cities of the same size, you have Bucharest, Prague and Budapest, and they have roughly 800,000, which is 4 times the size of retail space than you would have in Belgrade. And even Zagreb, which is half of the size of Belgrade, roughly has double the size of retail space. So I think this is definitely an industry that is interesting, and that's also something what we as a banker want to be part of. When Alexander, you're asking me what would you finance and what are our criteria, so now you will hear a lot about risk. One reason of that is that simply the banks today are driven by risk managers less than by sales guys. So this is a matter of fact, but still it's a lesson that the banks also had to learn from the crisis. So I think retail parks are very attractive because there's first a very low development risk. You have very short construction periods of roughly half a year. You have not a big risk of delays in construction, also not a big risk of not keeping the costs or the budget. And what Thomas mentioned, it's not rocket science, it's not very sophisticated. So we as a banker, we always feel pretty comfortable with the retail park development from a development risk perspective. Then we also believe, the second major issue, that there is a very limited market risk in retail parks. The pre-lease is relatively easy. We have all the international retailers in the market, and actually they are queuing for entering into new locations. Imagine they were just coming over the last 3 years, and they need to have a portfolio of, let's say, 20, 30 markets, and most of them just managed to open shops in some 5 to 10 outlets. So I think this is an opportunity for any developer that he will even have retailers queuing to open new locations and to enter in attractive sites. Also a nice example, H&M announced to come to Serbia, and usually they would just open in shopping malls, but as there is just a very limited number of shopping malls in Serbia, they even decided to also go now for retail parks. Talking about the market risk, I think we also have to see 2 aspects. One is definitely the purchase power in Serbia, and as the market is underdeveloped and the income per existing retail square meter is very high, I think the purchase power corresponds very well also to new projects and fits to it. And the other one is the rent levels of that you can achieve in a retail park. And here we think that in a retail park you will be able to create a profitable project with much less moderate rents that you would need to have in a prime location on a high street of Belgrade, for example. So we see realistic rents average at around 10 euro, or let's say 9 to 12 euro. This is what is achievable, and this is also what we think is sustainable. Sustainability is very important for a banker today, so he wants that any tenant in any retail park will be able to pay his rents not only today but also in a 5 years time. And here, to the question, which contracts would you like to see? So I think nothing is carved in stone here as well. I think it's always about the mix. When you have, for example, 10,000 square meter retail park, you would like to see probably half of them binding contracts of long term, which is rather 10 than 5 years. And then if the contracts and the tenants are quite attractive, you would be flexible on having 30 to 50% of the other tenants just committing on 3 years, 5 years, or even to some strong turnover component within this contract. So there is quite some flexibility. However, we want to see especially the somehow defined anchor tenants with long-term contracts. And then, yeah?
Equity.
Equity.
How much money on the table?
Equity. Then we come to the third item that I consider important and why bankers, or at least Erste Group, is interested in financing retail parks. And we are happy that we already financed roughly 46,000 square meters in retail parks only over the last 3 years. I think what we like is the deal size. So the typical deal size, total investment costs of a retail park, small, medium, mid-size, is 10 to 20 million. And I think it's now not the time to create any new real estate landmark projects in Serbia where you would build 150,000 square meters and announce an investment of 200 million. I think at least we are not wasting our time on that. We are rather focusing on smaller tickets because we think this is realistic and this is what the markets need. And this is roughly 10 to 20 million. And here we are at your question already, equity. I think as the deal size is rather smaller, also there's a bigger number of investors who could bring up the necessary equity, and it is, I would say, what we would like to see today. It's rather above 30%. It's close to 40%, but again. It depends on the location, it depends on the pre-lease, it depends on the strength of the developer, it depends if he is willing to give some securities guarantees. But let's say somewhere in between 30 to 40% of total investment costs.
Thank you. I would like to make a very critical question to Thomas. The buying power, the consumption, yeah? If you take now, forget Belgrade, forget the bigger cities, let's talk about some cities around the Romanian, Bulgarian border, for example, Vranje or whatever, yeah? I have a little bit concerns, or I think maybe the investors has concerns that the people don't have enough money. We take now in account that we're talking about tenants from retail parks like Deichmann, New York, and so on and so on. How you see it? These people which in these smaller cities, yeah, where really the buying power is slower or not so high. Yeah? Are we convinced that there is enough money to make a project? Smaller projects, I'm not talking even at 10 million, less than 10 million, 5 million. Yeah? Is this realistic or not?
I mean, James just announced that you normally look at a catchment for, or we do as well, for about starting at 70,000 people upwards. 70,000, this is also what you see in Vranje, actually more if you take the region as such. You also will see some retailers saying we want to be on the map, we want to map ourselves in the top 15, top 20 cities in a country. So some will be, as you also said, if you have a portfolio of 4 to 5, some might be not as good performing as others. It will be the same view I think the tenants would have. It could have been nice to have Deichmann or Taco or New Yorker at this. Maybe you will catch it later in the conference to hear with them how they see it. But I think they structure their business in the same way, that at a certain point they simply need to be present in the bigger cities. Some, of course, with a higher purchase power than others. And due to that, I'm sure that if you start low, maybe not on 10, maybe on 8, maybe on 6,500 square meters in a city like Vranje, that you'll also do a proper project. And if you walk around, I've had the possibility already to see some of the southern cities, also the northern ones, that I have no doubt that if you do it nice, you do it again with some of the strong retailers out of Germany, Austria, then I'm sure that you will be successful in the long term. You always see that it takes 2-3 years for the tenant to make a plus. So if you're on a 10-year lease, if you do the plus the remaining 7, then you're also doing fine.
Mr. Brody, for us, Schabatz is a hotspot. We are more specialized on relocation of industry, but I think it's also very important for you, because if there would be built factories, there are also more people with more money and more consumers for retail park, yeah? And we are thinking about also this, that this is somehow connected, not really direct, but at the end of the day, we have to show also the cities be attractive, not only for industry, be attractive for everything. You are happy in Schabatz? Everything is working properly?
Well, we haven't finished the retail part yet, so I'm assuming we've done a lot of research on the spending power in Schabatz, and it actually has the 3rd highest spending power of any city in Serbia, and it's a comfortable catchment. It's around 135,000 people. This will be one of the first retail parks in Serbia, so the catchment's actually going to be much bigger than 135,000 people. We're estimating around 300,000 people. And obviously that will narrow as time goes by and other retail parks are built in neighbouring cities. But we're extremely comfortable. But I go back to the concept. Basically, we're charging quite low rents. By any European standards, our average rent in Schabatz is incredibly low. It's around €8 a square metre. And the tenants, they're paying low rents. They need lower turnovers. And that's why a retail park works so well in a secondary city as opposed to, say, a shopping centre where your construction costs are double. Your land costs are probably triple, and the tenant then has to perform much better in order to meet their margins. So we're comfortable. And obviously the tenants have done. We've done a lot of research on the spending power. The tenants have done probably even more work. These tenants that we're dealing with, the likes of Deichmann, Taco, New Yorker, and so on. They've worked in several countries. Deichmann's the largest shoe retailer in the world. They've gone into a number of emerging markets so that they can quickly ascertain which catchments they can work in, and it gave us a lot of confidence that they were extremely keen to get into Schabatz. And going back to what Klaus said, they need it's economies of scale business. They need to have 20 plus stores, these retailers, in order to make their numbers work. So they're incredibly keen to get in Schabatz. So and also going back to the consumer's side. We feel that consumers prefer retail parks over shopping centres because they feel a bit more comfortable in that environment. And this is the feedback we've had from our research. They prefer being in a more sort of budget. It's not a great word to use, but it's a more simple concept than a shopping centre, and they feel like they're getting better value for money, and they're more attracted to that concept than, say, a retail park in Belgrade. So we're comfortable with the spending power in Schabatz. We're comfortable that we've also contracted another site in Sombor, and we're comfortable with the spending power there. There might be some teething problems on some of our retail parks, but this is an established concept that's worked everywhere in Europe. There's no reason to assume it won't work in Serbia, and obviously we're looking at 70,000 plus catchments. 5-10 years down the line, you can look at 35,000 plus catchments. So, we've built in an element of caution within the locations that we're looking at.
Thank you. Klaus, how you convince your chief risk officer that the consumption is not a topic, because the figures, if you take the public figures, they are very humble, but we live all very long in Serbia, and we know that by public figures nothing can work. Yeah? How is, besides the fact that you have experience with projects here, how do the bank see this topic? Is there enough money?
So about convincing the risk managers, first I take them down, ask them to stay overnight, and then I go out with them in Belgrade and have a great night with them. Then that's the first step to change their attitude towards the country. But seriously, I mean, of course, what you read in the newspapers about the country, about the economy in Serbia, it's also not a booming market like it is almost nowhere in Europe. But I think it's really about showing good examples, good practice. So as I mentioned, we financed 3 retail parks in Serbia. All of them were financed over the last 3 years, so all of them during crisis. We have lent roughly 30 million into retail parks, and we're very happy with this portfolio. So when I have a risk manager, I simply bring him down to these projects, I show him around, and then he will see what is going on. It's a lot about emotions, and even risk managers, they're not only thinking in figures, it's about catching the people by delivering emotions, and I think we succeeded quite well in that, and this is one of the approaches. Of course, purchase power is an issue, but I think those figures and catchment area and competition, I think this is always something also risk managers understand. Still, the experience I made was very often that they said, and that was at the beginning, they said, okay, we believe in all what you're saying, I think you're right, and this and that, but do we really see Serbia ready today? And then it's about emotions and making them familiar with the market, and then you can turn around their maybe negative approach at the first sight.
And a question to Mr. Brody, food retail, because the big secret in Serbia is to wait for Lidl, yeah, and then make your retail park beside Lidl, yeah. That's I'm joking, yeah. Which food retailer you chosen, or he chose you? How far you are with this? Because I think a lot of projects are now a little bit in problems because they are waiting for Lidl in somehow. How you see this?
Well, yeah, the hypermarket has been the biggest problem we've had in Shabats, and we waited 18 months before. We actually had a pre-leases signed with all the major fashion and shoe retailers, and Jysk as well, the home design retailer. And we then waited about 18 months before we got the food hypermarket, which is Delhaize. And that's obviously the most problematic side on looking at leasing. So yeah, that's been a big issue for us, and it's a very thin market. You're looking at active hypermarket operators in Serbia. There's obviously Delhaize, which is great. They're an international covenant. That's about as good. That's the best covenant you'll get in Serbia. There's Konzum, who are consolidating, I suppose, in Serbia. They're not looking to expand at the moment. There is Mercator, but they don't go into retail parks. They're a quasi-property company. And in Shabats, they already had that's one of their shopping centres, so that wasn't an opportunity. There's Univer Export, who operate in the north of Serbia, and there's DIS, who operate in the south of Serbia. And we kind of sat somewhere in the middle of those, and we couldn't get an agreement with them. As it is, we've got an agreement with Delhaize, and that's the best food hypermarket retailer we could have hoped for. But it is complicated, and there's not the depth in the market that there is in other countries. So if you went to Croatia, you would have Lidl, for instance, who we hope to be an anchor in one of our future retail parks, which we're working on now. Kaufland, Billa. So you have more options, and the bottom line is there just aren't many options on the food side at the moment, which is problematic.
Thank you. Thomas, I take now another very risky statement. The winner takes it all, the loser has to fall. If you're in one region, the first and a second cannot survive if the first is substantially good. Can we say this in this way, or it's too provocative?
Now I know you for a short time, but you seem a little provocative in that. But I think you are maybe right. If you look at if you exclude the top 3 cities in Serbia, then I think it's about being first. I think if you are first, you will cover the market for the next 5-10 years, and you will not see any competition. So I can only congratulate someone is sitting next to me that they did the first one in Shabbat. That's will going to be most likely a very nice project and also sustainable within the next 5-10 years. So yes, we are also looking into top 10, 15 cities and maybe not to 2021, but we are also sure that if we put our feet on the ground and we do a nice, simple international scheme with retailers, we will also be the one and only for quite some time. At least it would be hard for anyone to enter.
Klaus, maybe you know this in Pančevo. You have also Tamiš Kapja and you have Aviv. And in principle, Aviv is the total winner and Tamiš Kapja has big troubles. I think this is confirming that you have to be also the first in one way, or?
What we like in Pančevo is first of all that the city has a good purchase power and it's underdeveloped. But we especially liked also the approach of the developer. We is the sales guys and always including the risk managers. Why? Because he did it. Now we have roughly 20,000 square meters in Pančevo, or 22, and it was done in 5 phases. So the approach of the developer was not to build it, open it, and see what happens. No, the developer started with 4,000 and then added another 3 and another 4 and another 4, and then now he ended up with 20,000. And I think this is what was exactly the right approach for today, and also not only towards the market but also towards the bank, because for us it was much easier to approve small portions than to do a retail park of 20 at once. But not only for the bank but also for leasing out the scheme. So whenever he reached another 100% pre-lease for an additional phase, he had started to address us and asking for financing, and then for us it was relatively easy to give a green light. For Pančevo, actually, the location is perfect. So it's within a residential area. I think as the retail park has now a critical size of roughly 20,000, it could even work if it was not in some very central location. I think location is very important and correlates very much with the size of a retail park. So if you would have a small retail park of 5,000 to 7,000 square meters, you would have to have it within walking distance to some residential area. If you have a critical mass of 20,000, it can be already on the outskirts, because people know, I want to go there because I can get anything I could imagine there, so I'm prepared to take car or public transport. So I think this is also something we have to keep in mind. But for Pančevo, I think, yeah, things are pretty good.
I think a very important question, because some people have illusions. Yeah? For banks, it's very important to have experience, also with retail parks, because this is also a criteria. And if you have no experience, then it's very hard for, you have to find a partner which has experience. It's very hard for financial institution to finance, because they don't believe you. Yeah? Because it's not so simple, it's looking like. Can you confirm this, Thomas?
Well, I have done quite some business also with Erste. Actually, that was our preferred partner in Czech Republic. So we have done retail parks, we've done outlet center, we've done shopping centers together. Of course, what we hear again and again, it is down to experience. I mean, you come as especially in a market which is like the Serbian market. I think it's more, you get 10 times more credit with a bank if you can show a track record. No doubt about it.
If I may just add one sentence again from our risk management perspective. So what they have included in the policies is that they would like to see 2 or 3 successful developed projects already, not in Serbia, but in any market, to simply show and illustrate the experience.
Mr. Brody, I liked very much your statement because of this risk that you may have more projects, because my key concern for my investors is they say, okay, everything is nice, perfect, but we don't see in the moment the possibility to sell to institutional investors this. There is no interest. How you see this? Is there really no interest now, or when you expect this interest?
Well, the investment market in Europe is incredibly narrow now. You look back 2007, and there were a bunch of institutional investors active in Southeast Europe. Now those institutional investors are a lot more cautious, and there's also a lot more distress in the market, so they can get good returns elsewhere. So, you know, if you look at Southeast Europe in terms of transactions over the last few years, there's been Rock Springs acquisition of the Consum portfolio, which we managed. There's been WP Carey's acquisition of a similar type of portfolio, which is leased to Consum as well. You know, other investors active are, you know, the likes of Europa. But, you know, it's a very, very thin market at the moment, and obviously we're expecting that to change. But what we're very careful with is that we have very strong cash-on-cash positions with our developments. So, you know, we're making a healthy return even if we don't exit, and that gives us a lot of comfort. You know, over a sort of 5 to 6 year term, you know, we would look to potentially repay our equity. Yeah, that's our rationale at the moment, but we do expect institutional investors to start coming back to the market, and we're talking to 2 already, and obviously that gives us a lot of comfort. But the bottom line is, in Serbia, there's not much for institutional investors to get excited about. There's very few investments which they would go close to. So you know, that's also part of the problem at the moment as well. But that'll change over the next 2 to 3 years.
Thomas, do you have some view on this?
I think it is what you said in the beginning. Put 4, 5, 7, whatever retail parks together, make it in a size which is attractive to a foreign investor coming in. No doubt about it. In the meantime, you have to be careful. You have to be doing your budgeting in a proper way, that you're sure that if it takes even 5 years before you can sell it, you'll survive. We are hopefully at the bottom in the market right now. So how much worse it can get? So if you could do a nice sustainable project which is working now, it will also work in 2-3 years, and then in the meantime you have developed the portfolio which is attractive to an investor. Right now I agree with you that it's really limited, but selling one by one, I don't know how much sense that would make. So put a few together and sit on it and make a nice operational management, and that's the way to do it, I think.
One illusion which also some people have, very important for retail parks, is that you have cheap land. Not really cheap, yeah, but somewhere 100 euros square meter is somewhere a limit, yeah, because the whole calculation don't work if you have very expensive land. And also, I think some people don't understand this really in the right way.
Yeah, it's all about making the figures work at the end of the day. I think what you mentioned, so ideally you would have the land at 40 to 60 euro, but it can go, depending on location, up to 100 euro, but anything above 100 euro I think wouldn't make sense for a retail park.
I would like to make now a final statement regarding how life is going. I'm fighting more than 3 years to find investors for retail parks, yeah? And it's very hard, and now I have to say to you that opportunities are also going, because when we would get this equity we needed, partly we have it alone, yeah? 2-3 years ago we would have now some parks developed, yeah? With the right partners, and now the big fishes are coming, yeah? Because if MPC is deciding to do 15 projects and Poseidon Group is doing something similar, and then you have really a problem. Then the competition is extreme. Yeah? It starts with buying land, it starts with convincing some mayor, yeah? Because 2 years ago when you go to some city and say I will make 100 and more working places, you have open doors. Today the competition is rising, and you see, in principle, chances are coming, chancing for some segments of investors, and are going, and I see that we missed opportunity, but I think others will catch it up. Final statement from Thomas, maybe?
For sure we will. We are heading towards it. That we will do 15. I'm not sure. I said we're looking into the 15 biggest. Yeah. I mean, share that with Poseidon. We get 7 each. That would not be bad. But I think the market is here. It's now. So yeah, let's use the opportunity and saddle the horse, or whatever you say.
And what is your opinion?
I agree with Thomas, and investment is about timing, and now the time is right. This is where the opportunities are. There's still some distress in the market. There's not many developers around, but there's great opportunities. So obviously the risk profile is slightly higher here than it would be in more established markets, but the rewards are much higher. And it's the same problems that we have developing a retail park here as we would have in any market. It's just bringing all the different disciplines together. There might be more complications here on different levels, but the rewards are potentially much higher, or so we hope.
Klaus, you will finance. Who will finance too? Are there other banks interested, or only Immorent or EG?
I'm not so much focusing on other banks, but
Yeah, but they,
no, of course.
they have to create competition.
Yeah. No, competition is always good to be there, because even for myself, when I say, look, we lost the deal because UniCredit did it, then it makes my committees also a bit more motivated for the next deal, maybe. But I think, that there's a number of banks that is also financing in Serbia, and is also started to focus on retail parks, as they experienced that there are quite some successful projects out of it. I'm happy that we had a nice market share in these projects, and I hope that we will continue to be a valuable player also, and a partner for the investments in developing retail parks in the future.
Thank you. In general, somewhere should come and say the food is waiting. The food is waiting. Yeah, I hope the food is really waiting. Yeah, I enjoyed this very much. I think you too. And you see something is going on again in Serbia. For example, I'm also not convinced that retail parks will develop in Belgrade area, because the infrastructural fees are too high, the land costs are too high. We will see how this is going on, yeah? Because it's questionable if the tenants are prepared to pay more rent to cover this. But I believe in the medium-sized, smaller cities, when you are the first, you are the winner takes it all, yeah? Because the tenants need this. They have expansion pressure, and they have to make more revenues to cover the fixed costs, yeah? And I think it's a good opportunity now to think about this topic. But again, as I mentioned it before, obviously the bigger players will take over. Yeah? The leading part, it's always space also for smaller ones, but there was a window of opportunity 2-3 years ago. Klaus, we're talking years about this, and the investor did not believe. They did not trust in more or less German tenants, which had German tenant risk, and that's it. I'm sorry that we did not succeed to bring them together, and now it would be more competition, but I like also competition because it makes us stronger. Thank you very much for hearing us. I think it was very interesting, and enjoy now I hope so, the food is ready. Bye.